Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guest today is Debbie Babitt, author of First Victim. We're going to be chatting with her today all about her new release and a fear that she's investigating within herself. Welcome, Debbie.
Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I am beyond thrilled to have you officially here to chat about First Victim with us today.
Oh, me too. I've been really looking forward to this.
What is something that is festive going on in your life right now?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I've been doing a lot of book signings, and I've been enjoying that at Barnes & Nobles all over Florida, where I am right now. And it's very festive because the bookstores have all the holiday gifts and festivities around, which I love, and there's a beautiful, beautiful Christmas tree. So I love this time of year, and I love that I get to be part of it by weaving in my book signing along with that. So that's very festive for me right now. And it's nice being here in the warm weather, of course. So that always lifts my spirits, seeing the sun. And it's also good for me as a writer because I like to walk along the beach and plot, talking into my recorder, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
I love the beach. There's always something spoken at the beach.
Always. There's something primal that just calls out to me. And I don't know and hearing the sound of the surf, I could walk the same stretch of beach every day and it wouldn't matter because I'm in my head, but I'm hearing the ocean and it's the same ocean wherever you are. So it's just it's a comforting feeling in a way, but it's also a very primal feeling. So it's kind of got interesting emotions warring with each other when you're on the beach. Mm-hmm. But it's my creativity.
I have to ask about the beach, Debbie. So you said that you brought the recorder with you. Do you collect seashells? Do you look at the waves? Like, walk us through this experience of what that feels like for you when you're on the beach and you have your recorder and you're in that moment.
Well, I walk along the beach and I sometimes go when the tide is in, I sometimes go into the water and the waves. And I just look around at the vastness around me and I start thinking about my character and story, which always gets me going. And then I start walking, and somehow the act of walking gets me going even more. I take out my little recorder, which I should have brought over, but it's like this big. It's very small. And I start talking into it, and I talk loud because sometimes the surf's really loud. And I will stop to pick up a seashell if I see something really interesting, which may weave into the story somehow. But basically, once I start talking into the recorder, everything around me fades except the sound of the surf and the sight of the waves around. So the beach sort of becomes inside my head. The ocean's in my head. And that somehow really feeds my creativity more than anything. Maybe the thunder of the surf somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those sensory details.
Yes. Walking along the street is fine. I was on the Intracoastal this morning. But there's something about a beach and the ocean. There's something... just the primal feel and knowing that the waves are endless and they'll always be coming into shore. And it's funny because my next thriller, half of it takes place at the ocean. It's really in my head.
Yes. Is that one that you're working on right now, Debbie?
Well, I finished it. It's with my editor. And it's called The Man on the Train. And it starts in New York, and it's about a married man who becomes obsessed with a woman he meets on the train on his daily commute. But then the second half takes us to Montauk, which is a town on the easternmost tip of Long Island. You can't go any further east. And it's all about the ocean and the beach and the surf. And so that's really been in my head for quite a while now.
It's like a beach thriller, but like I'm getting the commuter part.
Right, I know. It's kind of two things because you've got the train, which is a big, big piece of it. And so you kind of won't be expecting the ocean, but that's another piece of the story. So that's really been resonating when I'm walking on the beach.
Can you share with our listeners and viewers what First Victim is all about?
Absolutely. Judge Alice McCarty is a New York Manhattan Supreme Court judge. She's presiding over a murder case, but there's a lot of chaos in her life, and she's very, very unsettled. She's got a secret at home, which if that came out, it could affect her professionally and personally. And that's not the only secret Alice is keeping. Her daughter Alexis has been searching for her biological father. So those secrets, and secrets Alice is keeping from herself, will take her to a tiny upstate town where she'll finally have to reckon with her past and choose between justice and revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a judge.
Mm-hmm. You have multiple POVs within this story, which is one of my favorite ways to read a book. I love multiple POVs. Did you start getting to know Alice first?
Yes. As a former actress, me first. So Alice, I saw a judge walking into a courtroom in her robe. I knew she was a judge. And her name actually came to me right away, which doesn't always happen. I knew her name was Alice. And so she came to me first. But I knew it wouldn't be only her point of view. I knew that it would go into her daughters and her best friend from childhood. And those characters were in my head already, and their voices started to be heard, along with Alice's.
Mm-hmm. Your details in a courtroom setting was so well done. Do you have background within a courtroom or any experiences there?
That's a question everyone asks me, and that's my husband, Ted, who's a criminal defense attorney. So I pummeled him with questions and emails. I did actually, which was wonderful. And he would always tell me the same thing. The law is not black and white. There's shades of gray. You can really do a lot of things within the parameters of fiction, especially because, if you watch Law and Order, he'll always tell me how none of that could ever happen. But I wanted to know my parameters and boundaries so I knew where I could move around and what would be believable in fiction. So he was an amazing resource. He really helped me. He got me down to court, too, before the pandemic. I met judges. I met court officers. They told me what trials were going on. And Ted knew a lot of them, so I got to watch some trials, which was very helpful, and meet some judges. So Ted really, and then he vetted all the courtroom scenes, which my editor, Louisa Smith, who's the best editor in the world, if you're watching, Louisa, she said, we have the courtroom scenes right. We have the details right? Because, readers still write in and say, well, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, he vetted the courtroom scenes, and that was very, very helpful because I didn't set out to become a lawyer, but I always thought about the law, and I used to watch Perry Mason, and legal thrillers were always my favorite thrillers. So I think it was in my blood. But as my husband said, it's better to write about it. The everyday is not as interesting. You want to just have a dramatic trial for a book or a film or a TV show.
Mm-hmm. How was it different for you, Debbie, when you're doing research from hearing the accounts from your husband and also being there and seeing it for yourself?
Well, that's very interesting because he tells me a lot of what's going on, but I saw things first of all, I got to describe a courtroom. I got to see my surroundings. I got to see court officers and talk to them. So being there in person makes a difference. I saw rulings, which Ted told me things can happen, but I was in a specific trial watching specific rulings, and how judges, they have all the power in the courtroom, and you can make an argument. And yes, there are statutes that are black and white, but judges have a lot of leeway. So that's what he kept telling me. There's a lot you can do. You're writing fiction, as long as you know the parameters, and no one can say, well, that could never happen, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it did help being there in person. Very helpful being there. It's nothing like being somewhere in person.
And I think it's so interesting with Alice, Debbie, because you just mentioned kind of the gray areas, right? There's always gray areas there. With Alice being a judge, but also having her own personal experiences behind the scene, how was that to write both perspectives for her?
That was interesting because she is a judge, and she's proud of her history as a judge, and she was a prosecutor before that. she was worried about becoming a judge after being a prosecutor. So most judges are former prosecutors, because she was concerned, could she be objective given her past? And that did give her pause. Her husband helped her with that, and because there was a vacancy and she did want to be a judge, but she did have that concern. And she did become a judge, and of course she didn't dream her past would catch up with her. So all sorts of things happened from there. But yes, that was still in her mind because she had a past, and she knew you must be objective, you must be impartial. And that took an emotional toll, especially as the book progresses. It takes more and more of a toll. Yeah.
What do you think your story or message that wanted to be told in First Victim was?
Well, it's interesting because it's about taking the law into your own hands. And do you take the law into your own hands? And you want conflict in drama, whether it's a play or movie or a novel. And the best kind of, that's why I wanted to be a judge, even though she came to me first. Her past was coming to me as she came to me. Who better than to have this conflict than a judge of all the professions? So I think that made it really interesting for me, because you must have high dramatic stakes. And the question is, will Alice pull the trigger? Which is okay. It doesn't give anything away, because in the prologue she's got a gun. That's a really important question. And it's funny, I was at the gym yesterday, and this woman ran over to me and said, I just finished reading First Victim and I own a gun. And I kept saying to myself, would I pull the trigger? And I couldn't figure it out. And I said, well, that's because you need to be in the situation. You can't know until you're in the situation whether you would pull the trigger. So that was very interesting to me, and the theme of justice versus revenge. And it's interesting, Lori, because I wrote an article for CrimeReads about justice and revenge. And justice versus revenge, or are justice and revenge two sides of the same coin? So I found that fascinating when you think of all the movies and books and plays that have that as themes. Are you justified? Or are you just justifying justice when it's really revenge?
Absolutely agree with you. The concept, of even thinking about my own children, I can tell you something right now as we're having this conversation of, I would never do that. But until you're in that situation where you have stakes that you can't even imagine having, but emotionally having them makes you shift that mindset, and right from wrong, and that gray area moves, in those experiences.
I know, because you can't know. It's too hypothetical. And that's, I guess, the lure of fiction. You put, because when I was researching for the article as well, you put yourself in that position. Would I do this if I were this character who does it or doesn't do it? Or, True Grit, one of the ones they talk about, the young girl getting revenge for her father. Or is it justice? So yes, till you're in the situation. But that's the lure, I think, for viewers and readers.
Yes. How do you feel like you've grown as an author, Debbie, from writing your first book, Saving Grace, to First Victim?
Well, it's very interesting because they're very different books. Saving Grace is a Southern Gothic, which has very literary undertones, and it's a slow burn, and it takes place during two time periods. And I think also what you're writing about determines the kind of book, because I got a lot of feedback from reviewers that First Victim, they were with Alice, they couldn't stop reading. It was what would happen next in the short chapters made them on edge. And Saving Grace was not written quite that way. And I think it's because First Victim lent itself to that. So when I think about growing as an author, it's interesting because The Man on the Train had its own kind of tempo, although it speeds along like a runaway train. It is that feeling. I would never. One author had asked me on a show, well, do you set out to write short chapters like in First Victim? And I say, no, it's whatever fits the book. However, I do think I've grown, having read a lot of thrillers and writing, I feel I've grown in terms of the plotting. Character comes to me first. That's the easiest thing for me, and that's why it takes me so long to write a book, because it's the character and it's very in depth. But then I have to make the plot. The plot must work, and it's a thriller. So I think I've grown a lot in terms of structure and plotting and around the character and story and the tempo of that particular story. I do think I have.
Yeah. You have a background in theater. Tell us about that.
Well, I was an actress and a playwright, but I was an actress first. And that's informed everything because my favorite director was the Russian director, Konstantin Stanislavski, who said character is action. So everything has to grow organically from your character, which is the challenge in a thriller, because yes, you want twists and turns, but I don't start a book with a twist and then try to develop the characters around it. So you want it to be organic. And luckily, I work from character. And when I was an actress, I used to write pages and pages of biography before I ever set foot on a stage. And sometimes after I finished, I'd say, oh, now I have to get up and perform, which told me I really should be writing. So it starts from character for me. And I really give a lot of that to the acting background. Also, I segued into playwriting. So dialogue is a strong suit for me. So that helps a lot because when I speak into my recorder, I'll have scenes of dialogue. Even though that's not the actual writing, it gets me going. So I would say acting very much informed my writing, which I'd always been doing. I just sort of took a detour into acting, even though I wrote a novel when I was 8 years old. Believe it or not, she was an orphan, but it wasn't Saving, it wasn't Grace. But acting really, really helped in terms of what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a first person. Let's say you write in first person in a book. It's like a 400-page monologue. Mm-hmm. So the acting's always there.
Has that helped with the staging, being able to see things with your acting background?
Yes, and it's funny. My editor said to me, "I love that you write your dialogue's so good. Are you speaking aloud?" Which she tells all her authors to do, because sometimes if you speak it aloud, you see why it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I hear it in my head, and I hear the rhythms. So yes, that really helps. I do hear it in my head, especially the dialogue. And some of the thoughts, actually, which, again, is like a monologue. Mm-hmm. So I feel lucky to have that. In a way, first person. It's funny because First Victim was originally first person in my mind. And through different things I was doing with the book, I made it third person. But first person resonates a lot with me because it's very internal. You're in the head. Mm-hmm. And detective novels are always written from the first person. So I find that fascinating. I love that.
Yeah. Before the show, we were both talking about our theater backgrounds and how we like to sing. Do you, Debbie, sing around the house wherever you can, or to walk us through what you mean when you like to sing and be in that theater moment?
Well, I love Broadway musicals, and I was just telling Lori before the show, I like the old musicals when they really knew how to write lyrics. Rodgers and Hammerstein, Rodgers and Hart, Lerner and Lowe, Stephen Sondheim, Jerry Herman. So if I weren't a novelist, I would definitely write book and lyrics to a musical. I have a girlfriend who actually writes music. And what happens is I'll be in conversation with someone, my husband, anyone, and everything makes me think of a song lyric. And then I start singing the whole song. Everything. It's unbelievable. There was something recently, and you wouldn't even think it would be a song, and it would lead me to something in My Fair Lady. Oh my God. Something Henry Higgins said. I forgot. But there I went.
So you, Debbie, mid-conversation, and then you just said you go through the whole song. So you're mid-conversation, you sing your song, and then do you come back to the conversation, or how does that?
That's a good question. Sometimes I forget. But if it's my husband, he reminds me. And then he says, "You can sing the whole song first?" I said, "I can sing the whole show if you want." But yes, then he reminds me what we were talking about, which never seems as important as the show, as the Broadway show and their story, the character stories. The world of fiction has always been the most real to me. Mm-hmm. You too, or you feel that way on a certain level?
It is. I sing a lot, but definitely it's when music comes on, I dance whether we're at the grocery store, whether we're at a family reunion. My husband laughs because the minute music comes on, I'm moving. It does not matter where I am. I'm just dancing.
It makes you feel great, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And you love theater. Now, did you perform?
I performed when I was in high school. I did all of the musicals. I did choir. I loved performing in groups, but solely, like wherever I could perform, I just did it.
Right. That's great. I know. And it stayed with you. You obviously, you like to break the dance.
Yes. Yep. It's an energy. Do you feel that, Debbie? Like when you're singing, there's an energy that comes with like,
yes,
that moment. You know?
Absolutely. And it always makes me feel good. I was thinking how when I'm in New York, I go to all the old shows. The theaters that do all the old shows, I go with my girlfriends and we come out and we're singing all the songs. And yes, and I feel like I watch them with a smile on my face always. Even if the story's sad, there's something about it. Musicals.
Yeah,
it's something wonderful, and they're great. And the books were great. They were written, when you think of Gypsy, which they say was one of the most perfect books ever written to a musical. So you had beautiful dialogue, and you had and that leads into song. So well done. That's why they're revived all the time.
Yes. Did you see? I'm seeing you as the character in Enchanted. Have you seen that movie?
No.
Okay, anyone who knows what Enchanted is, like I can see Debbie being the next. I will send you the link. She literally is like the Cinderella character that goes through her life singing about everything from doing the dishes to falling in love to, falling down, but it's okay. I'm going to go make a new dress now with mice and we're fine. And like, it's so fun.
Oh my God, I don't know it. I don't even know who wrote the music. I have to check. I have to see that.
I will send it to you after the show because it is definitely a fun classic that I think that you would really enjoy.
I love Debbie Reynolds in The Unsinkable Molly Brown. And when she sings that song, I Ain't Down Yet, every time someone tries to push her down, she gets back up, which is that's so great. I love all that stuff.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most, Debbie, about writing thrillers?
Well, I've always read mysteries and suspense, and so did my mom. So I don't know if it's in our DNA or it was just exposure to all the books in the house. And that's all I ever read. And I guess it's because it's a mystery that has to be solved. And I always make the point that psychological suspense, like First Victim, is a how and a why done it. And a mystery is a who done it. And Saving Grace is a hybrid because it's both a why and a how and a who done it. So I love all that. I love that the stakes are life and death. And I love to see, maybe because it's such a chaotic world, to see order brought back to the universe somehow. And you've got the villains and the good guys, and sometimes there's areas of gray. And the greatest stories ever told, even a Les Mis, where you have the great villain and the great protagonist, the hero. I think that's important. My husband and I were talking about that. That's really important to have the two of them facing off against each other. Some of the best suspense books would have that. So I can't imagine anything but thrillers and mysteries. I could eat them up. And I love not to solve it when I'm reading it and to be surprised as a reader or watching a film. I have friends who say, oh, I figured it out from the beginning. And it's almost like, I don't want to. I want to be surprised. Even when your own writings can surprise you sometimes. I know an author who said that at the last minute she changed who the killer was. And all she had to do was rewrite 5 pages. And I thought, oh my God, that's so interesting.
I don't want to find out the killer until the very end of the page because there is so much gray area. You know.
Yes. And it's nice to be surprised and surprise ourselves in our own writing.
Les Mis is one of my favorites, Debbie, for sure, for character arc and oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It's so great. And the music, bring him home. Oh my God, I'm hysterical. Hysterical. It's so high when the notes are so high. It's just brilliant. It's beautiful. And of course the book was great.
Yep. Yep. One of my all-time favorites is Les Mis for sure. What is a fear or something that you're personally investigating within yourself?
That's a very interesting question. And it's interesting that you choose the word fear, because we all have fear, of course, and that kind of goes hand in hand with thrillers and suspense and mysteries. I would say, I guess it's what would I do in this situation? And maybe that's why I put my characters in these situations. And again, I don't know what I would do, but I feel because especially psychological suspense really calls to me. So I know it's something inside me, it's my psychology as well. So I know people have always said, you're so bubbly and upbeat and you write, you write dark, you write thrillers. And maybe you're getting the darkness out. Maybe you're exploring the darkness inside yourself through your characters. Because sometimes I feel an epiphany. And I think maybe that does have to do with working through your own emotions, which you might not recognize at the time, even for what they are. And somehow things become clear to me. It's funny, as you're asking, I'm thinking about this now, actually. Through a breakthrough with my character. That could be a breakthrough in my life. It's interesting. That's a very interesting question. Mm-hmm. What made you come up with that question?
I love exactly what you're saying, because I had a very similar experience with writing Little Al, where there were things I didn't feel in that moment brave enough to go in by myself, but with the character and being able to mentally say, okay, this is their journey, but subconsciously some of it is mine.
Yeah.
I was able to walk through those pieces that I needed to investigate for my character, but also for myself at the same time.
Yes, that's very, very interesting that you can do it through your character. I remember as an actress, because I played a lot of villains. I played a lot of like bad teenage girls who were evil, and that's very interesting to work it through things your character would do. And it's funny because I was in a play in Boston. And I was a terrible character. Oh, I killed this man and took his social security. Oh, the whole thing. My mother came up from New York to see it and brought this guy I was dating. He was a lawyer. And she was so upset by my character. And I said, Mom, it's just my character. And she said, I know, but it's very upsetting. And I thought, well, I have this character do all these things that maybe I would think about or be upset about or angry at someone and never do. Mm-hmm. But they were like so upset about this character. Not that I would ever kill someone, but who knows what we might do given circumstances, extreme circumstances. Mm-hmm. So.
That's interesting too, Debbie, because she's seeing you. So like subconsciously and emotionally, right? Like she sees you, and I'm sure there's a part she's like, I know that's not her, but she still sees you. So there's that emotional attachment too.
And maybe I just did such a great role. I did such a great job playing this character that she couldn't distinguish me from the character.
That is a good job, Debbie.
That's what I love. Actually, I'll tell you one other thing. I'm Jewish, and I've never gone to Catholic school. So this character I was telling you about does go to Catholic school. When I got off the stage, several people came up to me and said, you're just like every girl I went to Catholic school with. So that made me feel I really did my job.
Mm-hmm.
I imagined it. The other thing Stanislavski talks about in acting is the magic if. It's not you in a situation, which is, forget the method, how you're supposed to put you in the character. It's a magic if. So if you were this person, you went to Catholic school, and it's all your imagination, which is what acting should be, in my opinion. Like kids playing cowboys and Indians. You imagine you are this cowboy or Indian.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel more connected, though, Debbie, too, when you're doing acting as well as storytelling, when you're putting yourself in someone else's character? Does that help you to have a different perspective outside of yourself that you wouldn't otherwise maybe have experienced?
That's a very good question. Very good question. And I think so. I think that with every book I read, I feel that I'm changed in some way. Mm-hmm. And I haven't examined that much, because I'm also afraid if I examine it too much, with Robert De Niro once said when asked about his process, which he couldn't describe. He said it would be destroyed. I I haven't, but I do think that has an effect. That's very interesting, and I'm sure it does. And that's why the characters are so vivid to me, maybe, when they come to me and start talking. Or I'd be in a loony bin otherwise, probably. Characters' voices talking, oh no. Oh dear.
We're going to take it to the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Debbie?
I don't know. It depends what you ask me.
First question. What were some of your favorite things about the holidays when you were a kid?
Well, I loved Christmas. So because I was Jewish, we couldn't have a Christmas tree. So I used to go to all my girlfriends' houses for Christmas Eve and decorate their trees. But we did have stockings every Christmas morning. We got our gifts. So we didn't celebrate Hanukkah, but we couldn't have a tree, which is a little confusing to a child. But I love the holiday season. I used to love to drive around the neighborhood, counting all the lights in the houses, seeing the trees. I mean, I'm thinking now that I'd like to go back to New York in December to just see the tree. I just love the Christmas season. There's something about it that just makes me feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
So
very magical.
Yes. It's magical. Absolutely. The skating rink, oh my God, it's wonderful. So that always makes me feel good, the holidays.
Second question. What was a case that you tried to solve when you were a teen?
Well, a real life or not?
It can be whatever case, either real life or something that you personally thought there was an injustice in.
Well, I can tell you something that happened in my family. My father was a federal bankruptcy judge. And when I came home from college one year, my mother said, don't use the phone. They're bugged by the FBI because something was going on. A week later, we're sitting and having dinner, and we get a call that a gunman got into the courthouse and took a maid hostage and is demanding to see my father, who may have put him in Chapter 11. I don't remember all the details, but it may have to do with the FBI. My father said, wait, we're going down. Don't do anything. We all went down there, my mother, father, and I, and they didn't wait. Apparently, the gunman pulled something out of his pocket. It wasn't a gun, but a cop put on my father's robes and shot him. Before my father got there, he was furious because the gunman did not have a gun. I don't know the details, but I remember seeing the bullet hole above his desk and thinking to myself, if this man didn't have a gun, that's terrible. That's horrible. They should have waited for my father. I mean, I understand if they thought he was pulling something out, but I don't know the details. I always wondered about what happened, what precipitated that. I didn't really get all the details, and I thought, oh my God, this would be good, in a book, I guess. You could really extend it. But I don't know, but it was very, very, my father was so upset that they didn't wait for him because he thought he could have talked to him.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was real. That really happened. And I never knew why our phones were bugged by the FBI. No one ever told me. And then it was over a few years later, but I never knew. He stepped down from the bench about 10 years after that. No one ever told me what happened. So that stayed with me.
That's super intriguing. Now I have questions for you too, Debbie. I'm like, well, why?
I don't know. And I never got straight answers. And then, I was a teenager, so I was involved in my own life. So then I pushed it to the, periphery. But thinking about it now as a thriller author, I'm looking back thinking I should have gotten more answers. I probably could research it if I wanted to.
Gonna Nancy Drew your own case.
I know. Nancy Drew was my favorite detective series. Favorite. Oh my God. I used to love those black and yellow books. Oh my God. I love Nancy Drew. And she's still around, right? I mean, whoever's writing, it's not Carolyn Keene, but whoever.
There are still Nancy Drew books moving, and it makes my heart so
happy. Ned Nickerson. I'm thinking now, I'm remembering Carson Drew. Oh, I'm remembering the names now.
Bess and George.
Oh, yes, Bess and George. Oh my God. I like it.
Debbie, high five.
Much better than the Bobbsey twins, which I never really care. Nothing. Nancy Drew was it.
The Bobbsey twins were, I tried. No,
Nancy Drew.
That's it.
I know. Oh my God, that was so great. Oh my God, wow.
Third question. What is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried, or you've just tried?
Did you say food combo?
The oddest food combo. Yep.
Well, it's interesting you asked that because food is very important to my husband and me. We spend the whole day talking about what we're having for dinner. No, I'm not kidding. And we eat in courses. I can't believe you're asking me that. I never did ask about food because I don't even have food in my books much. But the oddest food combination. Well, we have olives and cheese first with salad and sometimes caponata. Oh, I don't know if I have an odd food combination. I have lots of things we eat. We make fish. We bring in from this place Carmine's that has great food. I don't know. Spare ribs I love. Sometimes I eat spare. I love spare ribs. And they make great ribs there. I don't know. What's yours?
Oh, I loved asking this question because odd is so interesting. Like something that's not odd to me may be odd to someone else. And like vice versa. I put lots of things on salads. Like corn sometimes. Sometimes I'll put in like little like the tortilla strips. Sometimes I'll do fruit. Sometimes I'll do like Asian noodles. I just make very interesting like salad combos. I think that's probably I just look in the pantry and I'm like, oh, that might sound good with like a salad. Do
you cook a lot? Do you cook a lot?
Oh gosh, no. Baking, I can do. I enjoy baking, but cooking, my husband loves to cook, so I let him like just enjoy the kitchen because I'm not a great cook.
We bring in prepared food a lot. Although I will make fish a few nights, but we bring prepared a lot. So I'll bring in ribs, I'll bring in crab cake, tuna with the Asian noodles, but they're all made already. Kale salad that's made. That we love this kale salad they make that has walnuts, cranberries, garlic. It's really good. It's the good sweet and tart. It's really good. So I love that. They do a great linguine and clam sauce. So and I get the whole olive bar. So I don't really need to cook very much.
I'm also starving now, Debbie. All of a sudden, with all these meals that you're talking about.
I know I ate a little before the show, and now I'm thinking. So my husband's having tea now. So that's what we do after lunch. About 2:00, we have tea, and he always brings me a biscuit or a cookie or something with that. And then we have fruit later before dinner. And the new thing is my husband likes a very early dinner. So sometimes I eat with him early, and we take a walk. And then I may come home and eat, or unless I've eaten with him. And they say it's very healthy to eat early, take a walk, go to bed early. And then we'll watch, a thriller series or a mystery series. And then we'll have ice cream. And we were eating Talenti for a while, but now my husband discovered the Yasu Greek yogurt bars. Those are really good. Oh, they're really good. You'll find them in the supermarket. They're great. And they're healthy. It's Greek yogurt.
I love, Debbie, how you have multiple times where you sit down and enjoy the essence of food. Like that is super welcoming and inviting.
Well, especially as a kid, I wouldn't eat. My mother was always worried about me. I was a little skinny runt. I wouldn't eat. And the doctor said, she'll eat when she's ready. And my cousins used to make fun of me. I'd eat a quarter of an English muffin. And then suddenly things changed as I got older. And all I think about is, that's all my husband and I talk about, what we're having for dinner. Breakfast too is a big thing now. We eat very healthy breakfast. We eat oatmeal with cereal in it, cold cereal in it, fruit, maple syrup, a few muffins on the side, Nespresso coffee. So breakfast is actually very important. And then lunch, like we'll have Greek yogurt. Today we had egg salad and yogurt and some tortilla chips. And I had some espresso beans just now, which is very good because I used to live on pizza. So I'm trying to change my habits a little, and eat a little healthier, and I feel better when I eat that way. So food really marks the day. It shapes all the hours of the day.
Yeah. What is an egg salad? Like, what do you put in your egg
salad?
Well,
here's the new healthy egg salad. Okay, so I get the brown eggs, the cage-free organic eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of mayonnaise, which can bring your energy down, I get the avocado oil mayonnaise and just put a little in.
Mm-hmm.
I put herbamare, it's like a sea salt, but it's got a lot of other herbs in it. Then I put a little pepper, and then we chop celery, apple, sometimes walnuts into the egg salad, which we also put in tuna. So it's very good, and it keeps your energy up because it's not loaded with like Hellmann's mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
So avocado oil is very good.
That sounds amazing. I'm actually going to try that today, Debbie, and put that together. That sounds so good.
Yeah, Primal Kitchen's a good brand of the avocado oil mayonnaise, but there are many. Whole Foods sells many different brands of the avocado oil. And then I get the tuna. I get it's a health tuna too. It's called wild line caught tuna, albacore. And I make the same thing I just make with the egg salad with the celery and the apple and the avocado oil mayonnaise. And and a very good bread is Food for Health. It's made with quinoa. Oh, I forget. It's 3 grains.
Ooh.
Really good. And sometimes we have that with almond butter and jelly too. So we have a lot of good lunch dishes.
I don't know if anyone else watching this is hungry and ready to go cook in the kitchen, but I am ready, Debbie.
We have a nice. Wait a minute. It's 2 hours earlier by you.
Yeah. So I'm coming on lunchtime in about 45 minutes. So we're getting close.
That's right. I forgot. It's 2 hours earlier. Okay. Well, that's why I ate already. I don't want to wait and eat at 1. It's too late. Because I get up early and have breakfast at like before 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always hungry by 10:30, 11.
Yeah. 11's like a good, happy food spot.
Right.
Yeah. Before we end today, Debbie, can you share with our listeners and viewers what living a creatively abundant life means to you?
Well, I feel blessed that I get to be a writer and I get to write for a living and spend most of my time writing. I feel very, very lucky to do that because it's my passion and it's so wonderful to be able to live your passion. So I'm grateful every day. And of course it's work at times, often, because everything's work, but it's your vision, nobody else's. And I remember Stephen Sondheim, who's one of my heroes, who died last year, said in a song from the Pulitzer Prize-winning Sunday in the Park with George, work is what you do for others, art is what you do for yourself. So I think that I feel very lucky to be living immersed in my work, and every day I thank my lucky stars that I can do what I love. I get great satisfaction in the process. Then you have to do all the promoting and the social media, which that's work, but it's nice to connect with readers too. I really like connecting with people I would never meet, like you. I mean, look, it's amazing, right? Haven't you, as an author, found your whole life expanding in your circle of friends and people you meet? So that's very exciting and gratifying, right? When you connect with readers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That connection piece of connecting with readers and other authors, I totally agree. It's such an abundant and beautiful experience.
Oh my God, it really is. People you would never meet. And it's so gratifying when they say, I read your book and I felt this or that. And they're talking about your characters, your creations that you created out of whole cloth. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Really amazing.
Yeah.
As if they're real people too, talking about them as if they're real, which they are to us, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Where can we find you if our listeners or viewers have any questions after the show about your books or what you're working on right now?
Well, you can go to my website, debbiebabitt.com. Just have to spell the last name right. And you can find me on all the social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm everywhere. And also Goodreads too. But there are many places to connect. And actually, if you join my mailing list on my website, that would be great because we could connect. And then I have your email, and I'd like to be able to connect with readers and write to each other and get feedback, which is really nice. So debbiebabitt.com is probably the best.
Perfect. And for those that are listening in, it is Debbie, Debbie, Babitt, BITT.com. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Debbie. It has been a pleasure chatting with you about First Victim.
You too, Lori. This was great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Much love to you. And for those who are watching and will also watch on the replay, remember as you go about the rest of your week to find the things that are working within your life. You are the creator of your own story. What steps will you take next? Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll see you at 10 o'clock a.m. Mountain Standard Time right here on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Bye-bye.